let's talk about what we're currently playtesting in Grit and how you can have a say in what should change about it. Grit right now is in a very stable spot, but there's a lot that can be changed kind of in that stability, if that makes sense. So for example, in Grit's rules right now, when we play with enhancement cards, so that's anything that is an enhancement on the top left, right now in Grit, if somebody has an enhancement out, you can attack that enhancement with either a card from your deck or as a basic attack or with an ultimate attack by discarding all the cards in your tenacity and then attacking that card and potentially removing it from the game. However, you can still defend it just like normal. However, I found that in a lot of the games that we play during playtesting internally, there are often very feel-bad moments to this. When you play enhancement, whether that's cheap or expensive, it can feel really bad to lose that very quickly, and it feels like your investment wasn't worth what you paid for it, because your opponent potentially could have made a small attack, or hopefully, it's what you're hoping for, is that they spent a bunch of resources and cards to get rid of it, and they spent those resources to get rid of it, so you're not losing the game, and they're also they're also spending those resources. Hopefully you spent less or more. So it's this kind of odd spot, and the reason for that is because there was a time where it felt like just hitting the other person wasn't enough. Like that was just, it wasn't fun. When in reality, that's kind of the case and kind of really not the case. It's something I think that I put a little bit too much thought into when I initially came up with the rules and we went with it, but I think oftentimes it's a little bit more fun to build this up over the game and see how that impacts your game. It also makes it so potions, ones that are consumable, can be a little bit stronger, or are allowed to be strong because they're one-time use effects. So we could see a little bit of a buff there. It basically changes the ecosystem of how the game is played, because now all your damage is going to be going to the opponent, and hopefully there are other ways to interact with that. Some other changes that we're playtesting right now is stamina cards. So right now, when you reveal a stamina card, you start with 5 to begin the game. Each player has 5. If I can make this look just slightly nice, 4, 5. And right now, when you reveal a stamina card, when you take a successful hit, you reveal a card and then add it to your hand. So it's like drawing a card, which could be potentially very useful, especially with characters that have a low hand size, like angry characters, tricky characters, and experienced characters. They kind of like this card draw into their turns if it can sometimes allow them to promote better turns. However, something this doesn't do, which is a little bit less hard to quantify in terms of the value, is you actually don't get more defensive options. So if you're kind of left empty-handed and you have, let's say, an unlucky draw of cards like this one, where of course there is one defense card, where a defense card maybe isn't as useful as it could be, and you draw another one, you're now left in the same spot hoping that you either drew another defense card or something to help you not take multiple attacks in a turn. So one thing to combat that we've been trying is that based on the card that you reveal, you'll perform a kind of trigger effect. And this is prevalent in a lot of other card games. One Piece, I think Digimon has something like this, like a burst trigger or something. I want to say like Card Fight Vanguard, although I've never played it. One Piece has this, and I'm sure there's more. But basically, when you take a stamina card and you reveal it, based on the color that it is, so the class, you would perform some effects. So a tricky card might destroy an enhancement card that costs 2 or less, which would go really well with the other rule, giving you a kind of way to get around that fact that you can't get rid of them now by attacking. A blue card might say draw a card, allowing you to take that card into your hand. And then let's see if we get lucky again. A neutral card might act just like a normal stamina card and be placed into your hand. And finally, nope, okay, maybe I thought I would get lucky off that. Finally, maybe a red card flipped off the top might do something like go directly into your tenacity, allowing you to get potential block potential, parrying potential, and potentially charging your ultimate a little bit quicker. So this is just something that we're playing with right now. Obviously, it's not written on the card anywhere, but if this is something we were to implement, there'd be a tiny line of text that says, reveal, trigger, stamina reveal, or something. That's one thing that we are testing right now. One of the other options that we are testing is how to finish the game a little bit quicker. So I was lucky enough to play test with a viewer like you and try and figure out one of the problems that Grid has had for a while now, and that is when you are forced to defend all of your attacks, when you have a really souped up tenacity and you have a bunch of options and a lot of defense cards depending on who you're playing, sometimes it's hard for your opponent and you to deal that last hit when there are no stamina cards left, because you're always left with defending as much as possible, thus prolonging the game and sometimes doubling the game's intended length. So one idea, which was a very good idea that I had not even thought of, that we play tested and worked quite well and still needs a little bit more play testing, I think, to figure out what the right balance is when you run out of stamina cards and your deck runs out of cards, and you take the last one or two, your deck does not recycle. In the rules right now, every time you recycle your deck, you have to take a stamina card or pay a stamina card. This is something that is, I think, clear within the rules, but it's not something that really I understood as being a cost, but it is a cost. And because you have no stamina, you can't recycle your deck. You've effectively run out of options. You've run out of steam. As your party continues to fight, all that's left is for their basic powers, so their attack and their abilities, whatever cards are left in your tenacity, and whatever cards might be left in your hand when your deck runs out. Thus giving you kind of an ultimatum, almost in a sense, where you're kind of left to hopefully finish the game out, or hopefully run your opponent out of resources with attacks or whatever it is, before they do to you. So in this case, you are forcing the end of the game in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, I guess. I don't know if there's some stalemate rules that might happen, but it's potentially possible. So I think there's some other options there for how you could do this, but essentially this will close the game out once you run out of stamina, and now it's time to figure out how to end the game. So we'll have to see what that looks like with further playtesting, but that's something that we're taking a look at. Let's see, is there anything else? We went over enhancements no longer being able to be attacked. The stamina cards that will trigger an ability when they're revealed from life and then discarded after they resolve that ability. Then your deck no longer recycling when you have 0 stamina left. And then finally, yes, there is one more. The last one that we are play testing internally is what it's like, and this is a horrible example now that I look at it. Let's take this, okay? This is the board state that we have. Is currently, the rules right now state that if I want to parry an attack, I can prevent 3 damage and then flip this card in my tenacity, thus preventing 3 damage. And that's a lot. That's a lot of damage to prevent, especially because I've already potentially played this card, which has dealt 4 damage, and from up high, this could have been free when I played it, and boom, I've got this big giant card in my tenacity. So this is beefing up my ultimate attack, right? I'm already looking at 7 here, so if I put 3 other cards and I get this filled, I could deal a lot of damage. However, what this presents is potentially way too much damage prevention, because it's basically working double duty. So what we're playtesting right now is, instead of preventing damage equal to the cost of a card in your tenacity, each card in your tenacity will, every time you flip one, will prevent only 1 damage, regardless of the cost. This makes it so you have to give up way more cards in your tenacity to be able to block an attack. But it still makes it so you have to make that decision is, look, my tenacity total is still quite high, and I can make an ultimate attack based off of this. Or I can save these cards to prevent damage, and then in this case, I would have prevented 2 damage from an attack. I think what this means, though, is that the damage of cards overall would have to be lessened a little bit, instead of it being as high as it is right now, because some characters have a lot of damage potential, while others are kind of trying to struggle to keep up, and that's just a balancing act. But this rule would make it so your cards in your tenacity are worth a lot less for parrying, but worth a lot more for damage dealing, so your ultimate attacks might be able to pop off faster. In that case, we might have to take a look at maybe being able to make an ultimate attack whenever you want. So there's a lot to go over there, but essentially this would make it so parrying is much less powerful, because right now, with this right now, it would be incredibly powerful, and that's a little bit against the game, because I think with a change like this, we would look at some other things changing, right? We wouldn't have to maybe speed the game up by no longer being able to recycle your deck when you run out of stamina. There's a lot of options here, but essentially that is what we're playtesting right now. If you have any other ideas, or you've played the game, or if you want to start up a chat in the Discord, I'll leave the link in the description for my channel within the HTCG Discord. To have a conversation, you have any thoughts on it, please let me know. I'm open to a lot of suggestions right now, and it's a double A+ if you've tried the game as well. I think at that point you would have a much better understanding of what we're taking a look at here, and how it all works together, because it's really cool, man. I really like this game. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time, your patience on listening to me, vomit all over you about the cool things I like, and that I'm trying to make this as cool as possible, and as great of a game as possible, as at least that in my eyes. How about that? So wherever you are in the world, have a great night, day, morning, lunch, weekend, breakfast, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in whatever the next video is. So, see ya.